I'm an immigration attorney in Norwood, Massachusetts, and I'm here today on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube here to answer your questions. I hope everyone had a great holiday. Let me know that you can hear me okay, and please message me your questions so that I can help you. So I had a great Thanksgiving. It was just me and my partner, and we made a turkey breast and some sides and an apple crisp, and it was just nice and relaxing. The office was closed, and we had a nice long 5-day weekend so that we could recharge and be ready to get back to action. So send me your questions, and I'm just kind of waiting for people to come in here. So before we get to the questions, I'm just going to provide a few updates. So last week we had a lot of wins at the office. We had 4 cases of special immigrant juvenile status approved. We had a green card approved for a marriage petition, and we had an asylum interview that went really well. So fingers crossed that that gets approved really soon. This week we have a naturalization interview, so that's for somebody's citizenship. And then we have another marriage petition interview, and those should both go well, hopefully. So we'll have more news to report back next week. And also we have a new employee starting on December 7th, so next week. And she is originally from Mexico. She's a really smart young woman, and she's also a dreamer. So we're really excited to support now 2 dreamers at our office. So a couple of new items about immigration. So the filing fees that were supposed to go up are still tied up in court proceedings. So the filing fees remain the same, but you should get in your applications before they do go up at some point. The other good item is that the restrictive asylum rules that were going to be imposed, those are also stopped for the moment in lawsuits. The Supreme Court today is hearing the case about whether the citizenship question should be on the census. So that's really exciting. And also the announcement that Alejandro Mayorkas is going to be the next director of the Department of Homeland Security, which is a huge change from what we currently have. And I'm very hopeful that he's going to be much better, much friendlier to immigrants. And he has already said that he's planning to help a lot more refugees and make people feel more welcome here in the United States. So very good news. So let's see, what questions do we have? Let's send. So let me know what your questions are. Oh, here we go. If I live in another state, can you take my case? Great question. So immigration law is a federal law, so I can represent anyone anywhere in the United States and around the world. So I have clients all over the US, and I represent people from over 60 countries, and some of them are outside of the US, and we can meet on Zoom or WhatsApp. So I can meet with anyone anywhere. Right now I have some clients in Uganda, Kenya, India, in China, in Colombia, so all over right now. And I do travel to different courts if I need to. So yes, if you live in another state, I can definitely help you as long as it's about immigration. So I also do a little bit of criminal and family law for my immigration clients. So those I can only do in Massachusetts, but if it's immigration related, I can do it anywhere. Then I have a question. I got arrested for smoking weed. Is this a problem? So this is a tricky one because marijuana is legal in Massachusetts and in many other states, but it's still illegal on the federal level, which hopefully will get changed. But for right now, there's a conflict between the 2 laws. So if you get arrested for smoking weed, I don't, if you have a weed possession charge it isn't a big deal as long as it's less than 30 grams, but if it's, a possession with intent to distribute, then there's a problem because it might be considered a drug trafficking offense, which can make you deportable or inadmissible to the United States. So you can get it put into removal proceedings if you have a possession with intent to distribute. So it's really important that if you do get arrested, that you consult someone like me to know what the immigration consequences are of the criminal activity. So if you could get the possession with intent to distribute dropped down to just simple possession, then it would not be an issue for immigration purposes because there is an exception for possession if it is less than 30 grams. So make sure you check in. I also have a case right now for a client in criminal proceedings. He's an immigration client, but he got arrested and he has some different charges there. So it's really important that you know what you're pleading to and what the consequences are. So even if something gets dismissed eventually or not prosecuted, you have to be really careful because, for example, if you get something continued without a finding, that is still a conviction for immigration purposes. But pretrial probation is usually not a conviction, so it's very technical. The next question that I have is, when I get asylum, can I go back home? No, you should not go back home because the whole purpose of why you're applying for asylum is that you're afraid to return to your country and you can't return. So it looks like you may have been lying about your reasons for seeking asylum if you then go back to your country. So that's not recommended. If you do need to go back to your country at some point, I would wait until you have your citizenship before you do that because you run a risk when you're applying for your green card, if you have gone back to your country, that they might then reject you. So you have to be very careful. The next question I have is, what consequences do I have if immigration decides my case is marriage fraud? So it's extremely important that you demonstrate that you have a real marriage if you're going to apply for a marriage petition. So I have seen the consequences of this. I did have a client who she engaged in marriage fraud, and it was part of a larger ring. So she was charged criminally with conspiracy to defraud the United States, and she served 2 years in jail. So that's the extreme consequence. Other consequences can be that your case is denied, that you get charged with a fraud charge in immigration and get put into removal proceedings. So it's extremely important that if you are doing a marriage petition, that it is an actual marriage. And when I have these cases, I screen my clients first to make sure that I'm convinced that they're actually married for the right reasons and not for just immigration papers. And I have a whole list of documents that I have my clients provide to me to demonstrate that they have a real marriage, that they're sharing a life together. So it's a very significant process. The next question I have is, I got a request for evidence. Will my case be denied? So sometimes we get requests for evidence because immigration needs more information from you to be able to make a determination on your case. It doesn't mean that your case is going to be denied. It's just that they're asking for more information from you so that they can make a decision about your case. So when you get a request for evidence, there's usually a deadline on there that you have to reply by a certain date with the evidence that they're requesting. So, for example, we got a request for evidence today for a guy. I think he's from Nigeria or from Ghana, and we are doing a removal of conditions on his green card because he got his green card based on marriage, and then he was severely mistreated by his wife, and they're no longer together. So we're trying to do a waiver. So we sent in some information, and now they're asking for some specific other documentation to prove this. So that's an example of a request for evidence. Sometimes it'll just be something really simple, like they need a copy of a birth certificate that they didn't have before. So we'll send something like that. But it could be really easy or very complicated. But you have the opportunity to provide this evidence, and then immigration will make a determination on your case. So do I have any more questions? So I think we are going to be announcing some promotions with the holidays, so stay tuned for that. And let me know if you have any questions. We're going to be here all week, and around the holidays, we're going to be shut down for about a week. And we got in our first batch of holiday decorations, so we're decorating the office. So I'll be putting up some pictures of that. We got a menorah. We have a Christmas tree coming today. So we're going to try and make it festive around here. The next question that I have is how to prepare for an immigration interview. Okay, so it kind of depends on the type of interview that you're having. Today, I'm preparing someone for a citizenship interview. And for this type of case, I give a little description about what's going to happen. Usually you go and you check in 15 minutes before your appointment. You need to have all of the documents that they request on the interview notice. So for example, for the citizenship petition, I have my clients bring their passport, their green card, their tax returns for the last 5 years, their if they got their green card through marriage, their marriage certificate, the birth certificates of any children that they have. For men, they have to show that they registered for the selective service, which is the draft, basically. And we have a prep session before the interview and go over what's going to happen. So for the naturalization interview, you check in, and then the first part of the interview is they're retaking your biometrics. So you do your fingerprints, you do a photo, and then after that, the officer is going to ask you questions about your application. They're going to do the English test with you. They're going to then do the civics test with you. And then at the end of the exam, they'll let you know whether you passed. And then you receive a letter for your naturalization oath ceremony in the mail. So that's how we prepare for that. For the marriage interview is a little different. We have one of those this Thursday. So usually what happens is the US citizen will be brought into the interview room first, and the officer will ask them questions about their relationship, about their spouse, and then after that, the officer will bring in the immigrant spouse, who will then answer the same questions and also questions about their application and their history. And then at the end of the interview, the officer will say whether or not they can approve it that day or if their supervisor needs to review it. And then once it's approved, they usually receive the green card in the mail in a few weeks. So a lot of times people get nervous about the marriage petition interview and think that, oh no, they're separating us. But usually this is what always happens for the most part, is that couples are separated. Sometimes the officers will decide to have both in at the same time, but it really is just an officer's preference about how they want to conduct the interview. Those interviews usually last 30 to 90 minutes. And, we've had, knock on wood, great success with those cases. So I've done the cases in the Boston field office, Providence, and Lawrence are the 3 offices around here. And depending on where you live is where you will have your interview. The next question that I have is, how can I speed up my immigration case? So there are some cases where you can do premium processing, which is on some employment-based visas. But For the most part, you can't really speed up your case. The only time that you can really speed up your case is for an asylum case. You can get put on what's called a short list, which is like when you go to the doctor's office and they have a cancellation list. So you would get called in on short notice if there's a cancellation. So you would waive the 21 days of notice, and then you would be able to have your interview sooner. So I have a bunch of cases on the short list, and I have a lot of clients that want to be on the short list because they're eager to have their interview over with and just move on because it's very stressful. So I've had those cases called a lot sooner, but it's important to note that the policy with asylum right now is that the last in, first out, meaning that the last cases that are filed are the first ones that are going to be decided. So all of the old cases are getting pushed down in a backlog, but I filed an asylum case in June, and we just had the interview 2 weeks ago. So if you're filing now, you don't even really need to try to be on the short list because your case is going to get called pretty fast. In terms of speeding up other cases, that can happen if there's humanitarian reasons for that. I've done some humanitarian parole cases for people who are outside of the US but need to get in sooner because of medical reasons or because of very dangerous conditions. Um, but in terms of naturalization or just family petitions, you usually cannot try to speed those cases up. And then the next question is, why is my case in administrative processing? So, it could be in administrative processing because there's some particular issue that the supervisor needs to review. I have a case now that's been in administrative processing forever in India that we have gotten the congressional liaisons involved. So one of the things that I like to do if there's a case that's really stuck is I like to get the congressional offices involved in those cases because they have a more direct connection to the agencies than we do as just the attorneys. So that there's so many things that we can try to do to try and get your case unstuck in the administrative processing, but sometimes it just is stuck there for whatever reason. I know with the case in India, it's been stuck for a long time, and then that has been further delayed because of coronavirus. So a lot of things are just kind of delayed right now. And because a lot of the offices were working remotely or short staffed, things got even more delayed. So, but there are things that we can do. So if you have a case that is stuck, give us a call, send us a message, and let us know about it. And maybe we can do something to help move your case along. So thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you have any more questions. I'll wait a second. And otherwise, if you don't have any more questions, I will be back on Wednesday at 4 o'clock in Spanish. And I'm happy to answer any questions and look out for the promotions this month. Oh, I just got another question. Can I appeal my green card denial? Yes. So it depends on why your green card was denied. So if it's denied before the court, we can appeal up to the Board of Immigration Appeals. If it was denied with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, there are a few things that we can do. One is an administrative appeal, which is we file an appeal with that agency, or we do a motion to reopen or reconsider. So there are things you can do if it was denied, and you should contact me and let me know, and I can look at the documents to see why it was denied. Potentially, we can do an appeal, or I might advise you that it's better to just refile, or I can also say you're actually not eligible for this. So just let me know. We do have some consultations still available this week if you are interested in getting some more information about your case. I do my consultations on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And you can just send a message to us or call the office at 781-461-0100. All right. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys on Wednesday.